second video. I'm a bit frazzled today because I've been going a bit crazy about my work. My boyfriend's just gone back to work today, had last week off, so I kind of took it as an excuse to chill out a bit, which is fab. But today I just kind of went a bit crazy on any job application I could see, and I wrote an article and I just went a bit crazy, so I feel a bit like this is going to be my chill out time, just chatting about some books. I've read some great books in the month of June. I'm very excited to discuss them with you all. I say all, there's probably going to be about 2 of you. Hi, mother. Yeah, I mean, I would always like to think that before this month that I read inclusively. I think that was always an intention I had, but I didn't have the urgency that I did this month. I read mostly books by black authors, in fact mostly books by black women, and they were great. I mean, not just because it's always good to give them more support, because they're not always given the support they deserve, especially within the publishing industry, but also they were just really, really good books. I mean, part of the reason I like to advocate for reading inclusively is because A, it's a good thing for society, and B, it's just more interesting to see more perspectives. So firstly, I read more non-fiction. The first thing I read was How to Be an Antiracist by Ibram X. Kendi. I don't have a physical copy because I was given a free ebook by NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. And I really loved it. I think anyone who's trying to be an anti-racist, which should be most of us, especially now, should read this, because to be honest, before this month, the term anti-racist itself wasn't something I was particularly familiar with, and again, I like to think of myself as a nice, not racist person, but that's not always enough. And it's mentioned in this book that having that binary of just racist or not racist doesn't give any space for admitting that you're wrong. So someone like me, who before now would have thought I'm not a racist, but wasn't familiar with this whole idea of anti-racism, if you committed some kind of microaggression without necessarily realising, if someone comes out and says to you, you shouldn't do that, that hurts me, that's microaggression, you should then be able to turn around and be like, I'm really sorry, I'm ignorant, I don't know enough, I need to learn more. And having that space to be an anti-racist and being against the idea of anti-racism gives you that space to constantly keep learning upon what other people tell you about their own experiences, because as white people, we can't automatically know, and that's okay. We should always be doing more, and that's what anti-racism kind of pushes you to do. And so this book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, is very good at laying down what anti-racism actually means and explaining these concepts. So to me, as someone who didn't fully know what it was very needed to actually understand what I was saying when I was saying I want to be an anti-racist. There were also some very good chapters on feminism and sexuality, which, I mean, I'm an intersectional feminist, as we kind of all should be, and bringing in those intersections, I really appreciated that. Secondly, I read Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, along with everyone else, which is a fab thing. To be honest, I'm ashamed that I hadn't read this before. I should mention this idea of white guilt. I'm sure a lot of us are feeling it this month, and as was mentioned in this book, actually, white guilt isn't useful for anybody. It's not useful for me to start making it about myself and saying, I feel so terrible about what my ancestors did, because I can't help that, and it's stupid for me to try and make myself the victim and be like, it's not my fault or whatever. And it's just not helpful, basically. It doesn't do anything to turn yourself into the centre of it. It's not about you. It's mentioned in this that it is better for you to turn that into anger and to try and make some change. Now, I know reading isn't necessarily the peak of what you should be doing, but it's a good start to try and change your ways and try and turn it into some kind of physical action. But this book, very, very good. We know that if you're British, white British especially, you really need to read this, because I don't think the education system does it justice. Even if your school teaches you a bit about colonialism and what Britain did, I don't think it goes into the depth of this. And speaking specifically about the kind of long-term impacts. And yeah, this is great. It has a lot on the history of Britain and why Britain is the way it is today, and the kind of historical experiences that are feeding into the contemporary experiences of Black British people. To be honest, I did find How to Be an Anti-Racist more useful because of the kind of more theoretical bit. It gave me that first insight into the whole concept of anti-racism, but this was still really, really good, and it's really important to get that context of what exactly is going on in Britain. So yeah, you have to read this. We know this by now. You just got to read it. It's great. I also read It's Not About the Burqa, edited by Mariam. This, can't recommend it enough. I really, 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 really loved this. It's basically an anthology of a bunch of essays by different Muslim women in the UK about their experiences, and to be honest, I had never come across anything like this before. I think unless you actively go and look for it, there is one kind of idea of what a Muslim woman is that you get from, I say the media. I know as a journalist this whole idea of blaming the media is kind of annoying, but there is this issue of only properly representing this massively diverse group of people that is Muslim women in one way, and there's not a lot of opportunities to kind of represent everyone, and this was really, really incredible. And I think going into my career, I'm really glad I read this, because I kind of see the importance of representing all different kinds of Muslim women and not putting people into stereotypes, because all these books are kind of teaching me how damaging it is. But this was really, really great. Again, there's so many kind of different intersections to these women's identities, like their jobs. There's an engineer speaking about her experience as a Muslim woman engineer. There's people coming to terms with their sexuality, stuff about feminism, stuff about your relationship with the hijab and the burqa, and everything is just beautiful. And if, like me, you're a relatively ignorant white person, you absolutely should read this. And now on to my fiction. So at the same time as I was reading It's Not About the Burqa in this past week, I read this collection of short stories, Salt Slow, by Julia Armfield. Beautiful cover, really gorgeous. This was actually the first short story collection that I have ever read. The author really does use the form of a short story to do something a lot more experimental and kind of breach that boundary between... I've just realised there is a dirty plate in my background. Let me fix that, 1 second. Doesn't really give me a great impression as a student, and now we see my job is great. I do have a curry stain from curry I made myself for lunch. Not good. I need to be tidier. Okay, where were we? Salt Slow, fab, love it. Read it if you're looking for a short story collection. It's really great. I think the best story in here was the last story, which is called Salt Slow. It really does breach that kind of very gruesome, very much about nature. There's a very big theme of climate change and a big undertone of that, but I do kind of wish that the theme of the book matched up with that final story a bit more. I think you might understand me if you've read this, but the last story very much feels like the climax of this collection, and I do wish the whole world, I kind of wish it at least felt like it was the same world, and that there were hints at the world getting to that point before. I think that maybe would have made it a bit more impactful to me. It just felt like a climax without a build-up, which wasn't as satisfying. Then, this book I obviously feel strange talking about. Now, I have never fully read the Harry Potter series, because when I was a kid I was just a bit scared of it, so recently I thought that I would pick it up again. And this month I did read Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, but me speaking about this is in no way me kind of trying to say, yay Harry Potter, it's great, go get into it and buy the books and whatever. from what I've read so far, it is a really clever book, and I love it, and I think I do wish I'd gotten into it as a kid. It would have been good for me as a little anxious kid trying to find a little world to belong in. And in future, I will read the rest of the books, because I have them all from when I was younger. But I will not ever be putting any money into buying any new Harry Potter books or any Harry Potter merch that will in any way profit the woman who will not be named. But I don't fully feel comfortable reading them right now. I know you can separate the author from the art, but I think it's personal, and I don't fully feel comfortable separating it yet, especially when there are so many brilliant books by black authors and everyone else that I want to read. There are so many books about trans people that I want to read, and I think I'll get more out of that than more of this. But I did read that this month and I did enjoy it, but I wanted to mention it because I thought it'd be a good chance to kind of discuss that whole thing. And I know there's people who might, like I mentioned, will separate the art from the artist, but I just personally don't quite feel ready to do that, it being so recent. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. Next, that was the first thing I read this month. I'm kind of going backwards a bit because I wanted to talk about my lovely non-fictions first. The second book I read this month, this is one of my favourite reads of the year, definitely. If you haven't seen the cover, it's Half of a Yellow Sun by Adichie. This is a wonderful edition. It's based on, it's meant to look like an old matchbox, so when you put the desk jacket type, it's not a desk jacket, but you know what I mean. When you put it on, it looks like an actual matchbox, you know. This was gorgeous. She writes incredibly, just really pulls you in. And it's, if you don't know what this book is about, it's kind of a multi-perspective story based in Nigeria during the Biafran War. Adichie's family is from that region and experienced the war, and so I really love that this is a historical fiction that kind of is allowing the author to revisit her family's history and kind of connect with it and pay some respect to it. And the storyline was lovely, it was heartbreaking, it was beautiful, and I just really love that deeper element to it as well. But yeah, this was fantastic. Americana is one of my next reads. I'm currently reading The Thing Around Your Neck as well, all for my I'm doing on my Instagram a July challenge where we do books based on a few different prompts, and my book by a black woman is Americana and my short story is The Thing Around Your Neck. So I'm really excited to read more of her work, and I think I will definitely read all of it, even if I don't like the others as much as that. The writing is great, and what I've read so far of The Thing Around Your Neck, I'm already kind of falling back into her world, and I really love it. The next book I read is this. It's Born on a Tuesday by Elnathan John. I hadn't seen this anywhere on Instagram. I'd actually picked this up in Waterstones a few years ago. Just because it was one of those days where I just wanted to go in and look around, and this one piqued my fancy, and I picked it up, and I never finished it, and I don't know why. So I thought that, especially after reading Half of Yellow Sun, I thought I'd read this because it's based in contemporary Nigeria, looking at the life of a boy as he kind of grapples with Islamic extremism. He lives in a mosque, and he kind of grapples with that and his sexuality and his identity, and kind of comes of age in this time where he's also a part of the heart of this kind of extremist conflict. It was really interesting, again, especially after reading Half of Yellow Sun, to see another aspect of Nigeria. I think it's always good when you're trying to diversify your reads. It's never good to just read one book from that one country and be like, cool, done. It was a really interesting story, but the writing didn't quite do it for me. Part of me feels like it was too short and I didn't fully fall into the world. It was written like you could very much tell it was a naive boy writing it. I would still recommend it. because it's a story that I haven't heard before. And I think it did add to my understanding and my kind of bank of knowledge in my brain. But I didn't fall in love with it like I wanted to. But again, I would recommend, when we're able to again, to just go into the shops and read something that is different, not just based on what you see on your feed. And to just read stuff that's a bit different. But yeah, I'm glad I read that. I gave it 4 stars. I give out a lot of 5 stars because I think most of the time I enjoy a book. Just do the whole process of reading a book. It's rare that I don't like a book so much that I wish I hadn't read it. So I give out a lot of 5 stars, and then I'll do a level up and be like, yes, I highly recommend this, and it's 5 stars. 4 star for me is kind of average. And the next book I read is Queenie. Now, I'm sure you've heard loads of wonderful things about this, and I completely get it. I really love this book. It's often compared to Bridget Jones's Diary, and I think the reason that is because it has a bit more of a chick-lit-y feel than some of the other books I've read recently. But I really liked that. I think it's nice to have a different kind of pace sometimes, but it does still have some really, really important commentaries on things like the microaggressions she faces all the time, the gaslighting she faces from boyfriends who don't want to recognise the fact that they do racist things. But it was also a really easy read. I know some people don't like Queenie and kind of are annoyed by the mistakes she made, but I think I love a flawed character, and I think I really loved it, and it's a bit wholesome towards the end, but it still has stuff about racism, and I think this is really perfect, especially as a summer read that isn't too heavy but actually tells you a lot about the world we're living in. And next up is another absolute beauty, The Colour Purple. Now, I didn't read as many LGBTQ plus reads of Pride Month as I may have wanted, purely because I had so many books I wanted to read, and I'd already bought some books focusing on black women and just had too many. But I really, really love this. Next month I have way more LGBTQ plus reads that I want to look at. But this was beautiful. It is a classic for a reason. It is written in the form of some letters between Sally, the main character, and her sister, and also God sometimes. So there is this kind of subtle commentary on religion, but it also looks at her sexuality, her experience as a black woman in rural Georgia at the turn of the 20th century, and the kind of the entire community and what they were facing. But it's all very subtle. It doesn't feel in your face, especially how it explores her sexuality. That's not even kind of the main storyline, it's just a part of it. And it was really, really great. It was really sensitive and subtle and beautiful. And I mean, I feel like I don't even have to recommend this to you, because it is just something that is a classic, and I can only say it again, it is a classic for a reason. It's one of those books you have to read in your lifetime. Right, next book, An American Marriage. I've been meaning to read this book for ages. I bought it from the Margate Bookshop online. They are a great indie bookstore with a really good website. I'd recommend. I bought loads from them. And I bought this at the start of lockdown because I was browsing through the website and I saw it. And I trust the Women's Prize for fiction. It won last year. And I didn't properly pick it up until this month. I don't know why I've been putting it off. I like the idea of it, but it you know, sometimes there's a book that you just fall in love with straight away and you just want to indulge in it. But there's some other books that just don't get you excited. Even though they sound great, they just don't get you that excited straight away. So I didn't pick this up until this month when it was in the Books That Matter box, and I thought now would be a good time to pick it up because everyone's going to be talking about it. And it was really, really great. I should have read it before. It was really good. It looks at the lives of Celestial and Roy, who are a married couple in America, contemporary America. Roy gets falsely imprisoned after being falsely accused of raping a woman, and it is a bit of an exploration of the unfairness of the justice system in America. and also what that does to his marriage. It also looks at Celestial's experience as a kind of career woman who's pressured to fit that mould of what a married woman is meant to be, when really that isn't necessarily what she wants from her life, and her efforts to be fulfilled with the added pressure of how she's meant to stick by her husband who's in prison and is falsely imprisoned. And there is this huge thing that it culminates to at the end. And I don't want to spoil it, but I think if you read it, you will understand my view that from the beginning, I think Roy is he's not, although it's terrible, obviously, that he's falsely imprisoned, but he's not that good a guy, and he's not that good a husband, especially, and it's crazy the kind of stuff that he gets away with compared to the pressures placed on his wife to be the perfect wife throughout the entire book. And part of me thinks that what happens throughout the book may not entirely be because of his false imprisonment, but part of it may have happened regardless. And anyone who's read that, I would love to have a discussion, and I'd love to hear what you think. Finally, I read this beauty of a novel. This, along with Half of a Yellow Sun, I think my favourites of the month, my favourites of the year. It's gorgeous. Look at it. I'm very lucky to have gotten a signed copy from Waterstones, and I treasure this deeply. And I think part of the reason I enjoyed it so much was that I just felt so indulged to be reading this all month. I've just noticed that there is a slight snag on it from where I've stored it on the shelf, which makes me sad. But I will treasure this forever, and it was lovely. And Dialogue Books, who publish this, are incredible. All their books are incredible, and they are a wonderful team who like to support Black authors as much as they can. And yeah, this book was beautiful. It's based around this town in America, which was formed on the concept of having really light-skinned Black people, and the hope that in every generation, if they kind of bred in the right way, they would make a lighter and lighter generation. And that's what this book is based around. So there's this set of twins who are born in that town. Their family initially kind of set up the town. It was their grandpa, great-grandpa. And what happens is they kind of get tired of this whole town. And one day they run away. And eventually, after running away, one of them decides that she is going to pass as white to get a job, and she disappears and goes into this new life. So she's kind of the vanished half. While her sister goes into another relationship, has a really dark-skinned daughter, and her husband is abusing her, so she runs away back home, and she has to deal with the racism that her daughter faces growing up in that town, and the problems that come with that whole concept of having a community that prioritises light-skinned Black people. So it's a very interesting commentary on the idea of colorism. And then the whole book is kind of this mystery thing of trying to find the sister, and it's a really, really interesting concept. It's written fantastically. And also, something I really appreciated was that there is a trans male character within this book, but it's not made like this big thing. It's just what it is. The reason he's in the book is because he is in a relationship and is in love with someone in the book. That's why he's there. He's not there to show us what it's like to be a trans man, but we do still see some things about efforts to get surgery, how he deals with hormones, and it's also set, so this whole book is set from the 50s to the 90s, and it's set in, I think, there's a few parts to it, and then chapters within that, and each part is kind of going through those different periods of time. And it's a really, really great book. I would highly recommend it. I know it's a hardback, so not everyone will want to indulge in that, but personally, if you can afford it, I do think it's worth it to get it, because I think it was brilliant. It was really, really good. And her debut novel, The Mothers, it's written by Bennett, is coming out in the UK. It's being officially published here in August. I'm really excited to get that. She didn't actually have an official publisher for her first book. So I'm really excited to get that and cherish that as well. But But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I feel like it went on a bit longer because I just read so many fab books. So let me know in the comments if there are any books that you've read and loved this month. I always love having more recommendations. And subscribe if you haven't already, because again, I have some fab content planned for the weeks to come. And again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you soon, and I hope you're all doing good. Okay, see you soon. Bye.